So, hi, this is Griselda Togobo, and this is the Leadership Podcast where I have the privilege of sitting with some amazing women to discuss their leadership journey and how they continue to win in the world of work. So, today, I am sitting again with Margaret Korosec. And I'm saying again because we did a recording already and we decided for various reasons to re-record this session. So, in this session, we might go a bit off script, but we're just going to have fun with it, and we're going to make sure we leave you with something to work with and something to inspire you. So, Margaret, thank you so much for the second invite and for honoring it.
Thank you so much for inviting me to be part of your own podcast. I really appreciate it. It's
Okay.
amazing.
So, Margaret, how did you become the dean of such a fantastic university's online department? How does one become that?
Thank you, Griselda, for the great opening question. So I do feel like it's a privilege, it's an honor to be Dean of Online and Digital Education here at the University of Leeds. There has been a really long history already of digital education at the university, and so I feel like I'm coming into this space with some momentum already. The opportunity to come into this space to bring in a more intentional and growing online provision is part of this journey as well. My background is in online education and in what that opportunity offers our students in general.
Yeah.
And so I bring that as my own kind of background into this space. And so this is an opportunity really to recognize where I'm coming from, recognize where the institution is, and be in a position to help carry that forward.
Okay, so this podcast is for women, and we talk about experiences as women at work. And anything technology, digital, online is still largely very male dominated. Would that be the case?
Well, I think the technology there is definitely in the technology space, more male dominated, people in that space who are there. However, I bring that, I've always been in actually a technology space, and I bring that layer of the education on top of that. How does that, how can we use technology to enable an educational experience?
Okay.
And so bringing in that pedagogic background and bringing in technology as an enabler puts the focus on the education and the educational experience. And so I feel like women have a role in this space without any doubt, and I think there's an opportunity to raise the profile of women in this space. What does that look like to have women here and have the voice?
So has being the only sometimes one of the few women in leadership and also in technology, has that influenced the way you work and lead positively, or has that in some way restricted your opportunities to show up to lead in any way?
So I've never felt restricted myself.
Mm-hmm.
I truly haven't. I feel like, I've always embraced any opportunity. I haven't seen it as I'm going into a male space or into a female space. I've just done what I felt was needed at a given time. And I think recognizing, where I know I can contribute and being confident in that has allowed me to just navigate that space with clarity, and not worry about it. If there are others in the room, I've definitely been in spaces where I might be the only female in the room, but just holding my own ground in that space, knowing I have a voice at the table, has been really important, I think.
So I love that you said voice, and I know I've had conversations with some women, maybe middle of career, early days in their career, and they feel they can't always use that voice. They say exactly what you've said. They don't feel they're being held back by their gender, but also in the same way, they don't feel that they're able to reach their full potential. So can you just take us through the journey of you finding your own voice, you learning to walk into the room and owning your space and not being afraid to contribute because you know that you matter and your contribution matters?
It's been a journey, it's certainly, and this is everyone's personal journey will be quite unique and different. And, I think some people come into this space, not feeling like there's an issue with having their voice heard.
Yes.
I think I came into this space probably, cautious, maybe I grew up in different places, so I have this third cultural kid mentality where I, stop and observe first before engaging potentially, and that can be perceived as, well, where's the voice? You're not standing up, you're not, loud, you're not assertive, and yet I have needed that space in as I've changed environments, as I've changed work and career even, taking that time to observe, taking that time to see what is needed as well. But then being really ready to step into it when the time is right. I've got something to say, this is what it is, this is how it can help support the collective agenda, the strategic direction. And it does take time. I mean, and you have to, I think, personally work on that space. And I definitely have taken time to work on, where is my voice? How can I have an impact? Where is my impact?
So when you say that, and someone listening to this will be wondering, so how do you find that in practice? What does that look like?
Yeah, in practice it looks like, drawing on several resources. I think there's multiple approaches to that. Yeah. I've taken several. One is, who do I have as a mentor? Who do I have to support me with giving me feedback? And I've taken also other things like the 12 Virtues of Soulful Leadership, for example. Something that wouldn't be mainstream professional development, but something that really resonated for me personally, and that has contributed to kind of that principle base of which I feel is my foundation. How can I work and how can I engage in this space? How can I also ensure that I have joy in my work?
Yes.
I really need to have joy in my work, and it has to be fun. And if it's not, then, I'm kind of like, well, I don't necessarily need to be here. And so there is something about, finding that joy. And when you have the joy, I think the voice comes with it. Certainly that's been my experience. I don't think it's maybe typical experience, but I do feel that there's something in there to reflect on for anyone, for women in leadership.
It's really interesting that you talk about joy, because it's not something you hear spoken about in relation to leadership. But then effectively what you've just said is that when you're happy, when you're joyous in your work, you will show up more confidently. You will not be afraid of using your voice. And so there's a lot to be said about enjoying the spaces we find ourselves in, enjoying the work we're doing, and enjoying being with the people that we're with.
100%. So
you've also described your career in the past as being a patchwork, and you've described your cultural background as a third person reference because you're so multicultural. Do you want to share that journey? Because I find that quite intriguing. I don't think I've ever met anybody else with the same kind of journey.
I think, it's an interesting one, and I think I'm so grateful, really, if I think about my personal journey and where I've been. Just in the nutshell, I was born in Germany. I was raised in California, baptized in Italy. I grew up in California, but then went on to high school in Austria. I spent quite a bit of time in the UK. I got married in Slovenia, lived in Slovenia as well, and have lived in multiple states. Michigan, Minnesota, Maryland, and Utah. And so those experiences and being in different cultural experiences as well, I think it just that you have I have a heightened awareness of my surroundings. I'm really aware of how I am engaging in that space, but also looking out for norms and cultural contexts. And so there's something about that systems view that I think I bring to new situations where I'm like, well, it's not just the thing itself that we're talking about. What are the interdependencies? What are the implications of those interdependencies. If we make this decision here, what does it mean elsewhere? And in a very odd sense, I do feel that cultural experience and moving around, picking up and in short notice sometimes to move cities, countries, has just given me a bit of that adaptability, but also that keen awareness of my environment and how we move in our spaces.
So you've talked about two things in terms of being someone who's really very socially, emotionally intelligent and being able to read different cultures and making almost making space for everyone to feel comfortable. And I know I've certainly felt that in your presence. So you've talked about stopping and observing and paying attention to what's going on, reading the room, and then doing the next thing. So when you move into a new culture, when the cultural context changes, what other things do you do to help you do that so well?
I think it's important to see that context you're in, whether that's a new culture or a new organization, right? Organizations have their own culture, so
Yes.
so it's very much applicable. And I think it's finding where is it that I have something to contribute, and how is that applicable to this space, and just navigating there, but also just standing up, being okay with, well, maybe this or that resonates or doesn't resonate.
Yes.
In a different context. And so being comfortable trying, being comfortable exploring or experimenting is really important as well. But I think that needs to come, that comes with confidence as well, that it's okay to fail, it's okay to stand back up if you've fallen down physically or metaphorically. So.
Yeah, I hear that expression all the time, that it's okay to fail and we should be encouraged to fail more. And I know when I failed, some days you feel like you're failing. It can be quite, you have a visceral reaction to it. It's not a sweet feeling like joy where you want to hit repeat. When you're failing, when you're in pain, when you're having a bad day, it doesn't feel like something you want to repeat. So how can we teach ourselves to embrace those quite difficult moments, because that's where the learning really comes from?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. In our technology now, we can press delete, right?
Yes.
and forget about it.
Yeah.
That video doesn't exist, or this document doesn't exist. We can delete it. But our experiences come with us, and essentially they stay with us. There's something, whether it's on the surface or it's kind of deeply embedded or a subconscious level. Those experiences inform how we navigate and move around.
Yes.
And it's all in our attitude. I think if we choose to let that pull us down, then that is a choice that we absolutely have the opportunity to make. But I think it's also within our gift to say, you know what, I'm not going to dwell on that. That's not going to inform who I am. It's a moment in time, and I'm going to move on, or I'm going to learn from that.
That sounds like a very wise thing to do. So normally when I have these interviews, women like you, leaders like you, have lots of career highlights. There are so many things you can point at. Being the dean, leading these great institutions, digital learning, being a mom of 2 grown kids, being happily married for so long, and there are so many things. And I also know you've done some things outside of work, housing refugees that you might not want to talk about on this podcast, but you're a good person, you've achieved a lot of things. But what are some of the setbacks as well that you've achieved that maybe other people can look at and say, well, Margaret is amazing, but she went through this, so if I'm going through that, then I can, that doesn't take away from my goodness or my success that I'm experiencing.
Yeah, I mean, it's really a mix. I have some wonderful career highlights, without question. I've made some choices in my life, personal life, that have been really enriching. We did support 2 Ukrainian families last year, and that was incredibly intense and emotional and fulfilling all at the same time. Seeing my own children grow into the young adults that they are is also incredibly wonderful and super exciting. I think when I look back about choices I've made or things that I maybe would have chosen differently, I think there are, because I was moving quite a bit. As a family, we chose to move quite a bit with young children. There were choices there that probably weren't in my professional best interest. Yet they still are part of the makeup of who I am now. So, it could be conceived as a setback. It could be conceived that, I didn't, certain periods of time I wasn't contributing to my retirement fund, or I wasn't, I wasn't doing the things that you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
But you know what, you just think, I don't know, I mean, I don't have any regrets, to be honest. And I honestly don't really see any particular thing that calls out to me as a setback. I see challenges. Certainly, we all have challenges. There's always things to deal with. Life always
Lots of lemons.
throws the lemons, and I see some people get different lemons, and sometimes those are definitely much worse than what I've experienced.
Yes.
And so if in the grand scheme of things, I really don't. Or let me just say, I don't carry any setbacks with me. I just don't. It just doesn't. I cannot dedicate the energy to it. I do not give energy to that space.
So I'm hearing a reframe of the whole thing. I'm hearing gratitude because you're comparing it to people who are worse off than you. I'm hearing the grand scheme, so a wider perspective. It doesn't really matter. But also there's a narrative on social media, certainly, about people who are so positive all the time that they refuse to accept what's happening around that. So I don't agree that positivity can ever be toxic, because you're either positive or you allow yourself to be overtaken by the negative. What do you have to say about that?
I probably have a lot to say there, because I definitely am more of an optimist. I don't think my husband has the same approach. He might say he's a realist. I might say he's a pessimist. And so there's this balance in the family of approaches, and it's been interesting with the dynamic of raising children, where I'm kind of like, oh, just do it and try it and learn, and what's the worst that can happen. That's kind of something that I often say. And so there are different approaches, but I completely stand by my approach. I mean, but I don't also push it to others. In other words, I completely respect that, this attitude or this positivity isn't for everyone. It's not natural to everyone necessarily. And so there is something about, just standing in the space that I am comfortable with and that works for me.
Yes.
And would never try to impose it on someone. I can offer my perspective, and I can offer what works for me, or what serves, the way I choose to engage. But there's some navigating in that space.
Yeah, I love what you said, actually, because at the end of the day, when you look at people's lives, everybody's lives is so different, and you can learn so much from their lives, their experiences, their perspective, and you can take on so much advice. But at the end of the day, it has to work for you, and you have to be able to call on it and use it and be consistent in using it. And in as much as some things work for others, they don't always work for us. But I think positivity should work for everyone. Because what else can you hold? What else will give you hope if there is no vision of a better world? There's no vision of a better tomorrow.
Yeah, it's kind of like, where do we put our energy?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Where do we focus? What do we put our energy into? And I'm familiar with those who really dwell on either not having money, or not having, never having enough time, and or any other thing. And there is no question those are real situations. And I also have been in those situations. But I just don't choose to really focus on them. I do not, it's not worth the energy to surface that, to raise it. It's not that I'm not realistic, and there's, it's just I'm going to focus on
On
the
a
things.
day to day, yeah, it just makes life a lot bearable, a lot happier to tap into your joy. So let's circle back to something you said about the choices you made in moving as a family, and perhaps that not being the best for your career at that point in time. And you made a statement about contributing to pension funds and all that, and I can relate to that. I mean, when I had my son and I left my well-paid pension contributing job to start my business, I didn't contribute to a pension for a while. And I know there's a big pension gap women face because of that. And I also know there are so many women making choices now, either to step back from really successful full-on careers, or to only look for jobs that are flexible, or to travel with their partners who have been posted into different regions, or veterans, or there's so many choices that sometimes we women bear the burden of, because we want to see the family do well, or we want our children to do well. So for people making those choices now and maybe feeling they are missing out, what do you have to say to them? Because you have come full circle, and you've done really well despite taking some time out to do all the things that you wanted to do. What do you have to say to people feeling they're missing out or not hitting certain milestones at certain times with their lives or their careers due to those choices?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really great question, and we always have different options in life to choose, and sometimes we can project what the path of that decision might look like, but we can't always know the outcome, and so, but personally, I feel like there's something about, does it feel right? Does it resonate? And sometimes you have evidence, and you have data, and you have hard facts that can inform these. But I do feel that there's a space for, does that feel like the right thing to do? Does that contribute to either the family unit or your professional career? And I think, we can get tied up with the fear of a risk that might feel like something's too risky.
Yes.
But I also feel that those are exactly the opportunities to stretch and to grow. And so again, because I've moved so much and picked up and started new career paths and new projects or new certifications or different things, it's all something that you carry with you. Education you carry with you, whatever that form is, and life education and life experience is so important in that narrative. So I do encourage, thinking outside. I think we can get tied up into, I have to do this next job first, or I have to, what the natural progression is. But entrepreneurship, what is it? Look at you, right? Look at your story. It's amazing. And I think that taking the risk to do something entrepreneurial or to venture out opens up the doors. I think there's probably not enough financial literacy in our society, and in certainly our communities and as female leaders, because, do the calculations. What does it look like to take a risk? Calculated risk potentially, but to do something different, and that's, is it exciting? Then think about it and do that. And I think I know I've grown from taking some risks and pivoting, or picking up and moving completely to a new country, new society, new city. And I see that in my own children now, where they are making decisions now for their lifetime. What does it mean for them? And so I just feel like it just contributes to our experience, our life experience.
Yeah, and there's so much pressure as well. I think there's so much external pressure to achieve certain things at certain times. And life looks so linear or supposedly looks linear for a lot of people, but actually it's not. It's very squiggly. There's no straight path to any one path. And from my own experience, it's never been just when you think you've hit a milestone, there's an even bigger one. So you have to learn to enjoy the journey and to make the choices that, as you've said, feel really right, even though they might not look like the best choices for everyone else around you. But that comes from really knowing yourself and learning to trust your own instinct.
Yes.
And I know I talk myself out of some really great decisions. I talk myself out of so many things. But again, can you share how you've learned to really tap into that instinct a bit more? Because I know when I was younger, in my 20s and 30s, I always had instincts about things, but I never really heeded them. And now in my 40s, I think I pay more heed, but it's still quite cautious. And I take time to contemplate on things I probably shouldn't spend so much time contemplating on, because my instincts are telling me it's a poor choice.
Yeah, I think it's really important to listen to that intuition, to listen to that the voice sitting on our shoulder, or however people might perceive that to be, or however it kind of manifests. But there's instincts that instincts and intuition. I think there's a bit of a mix of both. I mean, we naturally want to be protected, and any kind of decision that we're making, where are the threats, that might be associated with that. But again, taking in what that experience might be and looking and feeling, is that right? Yes, there may be risks or threats associated with that, but tapping into that and asking those questions, is this right for me? Will it bring me joy? Will it be fulfilling? Will it serve my, me as a professional? Will it serve my family situation? I think if I reflect on kind of some key decisions where I was, where I didn't follow my instinct. Yes. Where I didn't follow my intuition, it was always right. It was always right. And if I made the wrong, if I didn't listen to the intuition, there were maybe some different paths that emerged from that. But there's something really powerful about that. And you're right, it's about trust. Yes. It is about trusting ourselves, tapping into that. But, I think just kind of carving out a little bit of that space as well, to sit with something and allow yourself to sit with that question, is really important. We kind of make quick decisions. We call a friend, or we call a colleague or a trusted mentor, and we bounce those ideas off of people to help us make a decision. That's what I do. But also just sitting with yourself, having that conversation with yourself. Is this really serving me? Is this choice going to support me?
Yeah, and I'm so glad you touched on that, because sometimes it's about movement and progress and choices and move, and we don't have enough time to just sit and really stew on ideas and just see where that takes us, because there isn't enough time. Like, we came into this call just rushed off our feet.
We did.
Because we had 1,000,001 things to do. So to make time, you have to be so intentional about it. And I feel there are some women who do that really well. But I also feel there are still a lot of us who don't probably make enough time. Yesterday I was at a speech day for my daughter, Elena, I'm 7-year-old. And we were a family, 3 couples. The men were sitting on the left, the women were sitting on the right. And I noticed that all the women had our phones on, and we were working. We were checking emails, responding to emergencies, trying to resolve issues. And when I turned and looked at the men, the dads, they were all just sat there paying attention, whether they were daydreaming or not, but they were not on their phones. And I even made a comment to one of the moms, like, look at what we're doing. Yeah. The men are going to leave here refreshed. And we've been working the whole time. We've been supposed to be watching our kids graduate. Oh. And then we're going to, go home and carry on. So I think subconsciously the culture is for us to just keep working. Even when it's on our phones, you have emails and you can still be working. And it takes a lot of discipline to stop and create space.
It does. It takes time to create space, and essentially it comes down to just being present,
Mm.
and that is it is tough.
I think it's harder than moving. Yes.
It's really tough to just
Yeah.
be present, and I've been thinking a lot about that recently, about our meetings and our meeting structures and things like that, and just thinking, what would a really short meeting look like where we are all committing to just being fully present?
Yes.
Honestly, it seems like that might be a portal to open up a whole new kind of way of interacting with each other, especially in kind of an online space where so many meetings now are online.
Yes.
You get this, long meetings that are very long, and you've got a snippet of time on the agenda, and you're interested in the whole, everything that's happening there, but there's this pressure to do other things. There's this pressure to respond to deadlines, and and in a way our culture is that, well, you will multitask, you will do this on the side and do this concurrently.
Yes.
But I would make a call, let's say, to what would it look like to just have a shorter focused meeting, but with the premise, can we all show up and be fully present for a very short period of time?
Yeah.
I think our attention spans are different now, and I think it may be a way to kind of engage in a different way with our teams, with our peers, with our communities.
I've been exploring 15-minute meetings.
Oh, I love it. See? Look at you.
15-minute meetings,
Exactly.
30-minute meetings, 45. I've been exploring all that. And just because you do waste quite a bit of time in meetings, just not getting to the point. But I also know some people like that. So my personality is to go straight to the point, get the meeting done. But for different people on the team who might not like that, they like to warm up before the actual meeting. But there's a great book I've been reading, actually, Jason Friedman, and I read his book before I started my business, The Real Work, and there's a second book, Work Doesn't Have to Be Crazy, and I think he challenges the whole notion of having meetings at all.
Yep.
Could it be an email? And for ladies, I just wrote one of our members' guides on effective meetings, because I went to a meeting and I drove 3 hours to go to a meeting. The person wasn't prepared for the meeting.
Oh, no.
I crashed my way into the meeting, crashed my way out of the meeting. Another bad day that I had.
Another one.
I know.
Uh-oh.
And I thought, why wasn't this a virtual call? Why wasn't this an email?
Yeah.
Because people are not respectful of other people's time. And I don't think it's even about meeting. It's about respect of other
totally
people's
agree.
time as well. And with women being so short of time, not just women, families being so short of time, it would be good to go to work and just get the work done so you can go out and live a life.
That's right.
Yeah, so I really love that point you made. So I want to go back on something I know you're very passionate about, female leadership. We don't talk about that enough. I think we just talk about leadership dressed in trousers.
Oh, no.
I know we've changed the face a bit. There are dresses and colorful blazers
I like
now.
it. Yes.
But really, being seen as an effective leader is still quite macho, not very vulnerable or empathetic. And Jessica Arden and some of the other people who were quite public leaders that we saw do things differently are still not the norm. So what's your take on that? How has that shaped your own approach in the work you're doing?
Thank you. I mean, it has, and again, as I know as I've matured and learned and have had different experiences in leadership and experiences in educational settings and other settings, it comes back down to just, being okay with, it doesn't have to be this, here are the facts, there are different leadership types, you can be the authoritarian leader, you can be a compassionate leader, you can be an inspirational leader, and, kind of like there are other styles, let's say, of leadership, and I think recognizing that there's a contribution from those different styles and approaches is really important. I'm quite comfortable like I feel like I have a space in being an inspirational leader when it comes to online education and the opportunities that technology affords a student experience. I get fired up. I get fired up and I love it, and I love the opportunities that are possible. And so I think I have a message to say, and I think there's something about bringing people along with that as an inspiration. And I am now comfortable in that space, and it's taken me some time to probably get there, but that is where I feel right now. And I can draw on others who are in kind of this community at a strategic level that have the hard evidence, or that have the data to inform that, and be complementary to other leaders in the space, or other people in the in kind of the strategic approach to our initiatives. And I do feel that there's an increasing recognition that there are different approaches there. And sometimes there's a bit of a sparring or dynamic where you're trying to, who has the voice, or who has the upper hand. And you can fight it, or you can just stay constant and be on your path, and that repetition of knowing and standing by what you stand for, and what you say, and what your presence means, or how it impacts the ambitions. Yeah, I'm not sure I answered your question, but it's just something that I'm just not worried about anymore.
Well,
actually.
yes. No, but that's the thing. Something you used to be worried about, and you're no longer worried about, because you're now comfortable in your own space, in your own body, with your own perspective. But it's also because it's been effective for you, isn't it? If it wasn't effective, you'd be looking for a different way of doing things.
Yeah.
Okay, so you talked about online learning really firing you up. So what excites you about that? What should anyone, tell us something that anyone listening to this call has no idea about the online learning space should be excited about?
I think online learning, well, one, I've seen the impact. I think, you only need to go to a graduation of someone who has completed an online degree, or any degree for that matter, to be quite inspired by what they've achieved and what they are going on to do. In my experience, seeing those who've completed an online degree, the impact on their life and on their profession has been significant. And I contrast that to maybe someone going through a campus degree, because there's other factors generally to consider when someone does pursue an online degree, and that is because they are working full time, they have caretaking responsibilities, they live in a remote place and don't have a campus to access easily, and so online opportunities is an opportunity for them to pursue a degree or certification, but there's a huge responsibility in that opportunity. And the responsibility is to design that experience very intentionally. What is the learner able to do independently? Where can they be self-directed in their learning during that time frame? Where will they have the opportunity to engage with their academic and learn, straight, let's say, from the subject matter expert in that space? This is where online learning is really an amazing opportunity. The intentional design of that program, of that course, however small or large or long that is a key component. And that's the part that I feel super inspired to make sure we get it right. We are designing this very intentionally, and leading and navigating, helping that learner come and navigate through the online space.
So what do you have to say to skeptics who say, well, a lot of people sign up to online courses, but not a lot of people are able to finish it?
Yeah.
And there's something to say about sitting in a room in a space with others. What do you have to say?
Well, absolutely. I mean, there's no question. I myself have started many free courses and not completed them. But I asked myself why, and if I didn't feel that there was value in that, or I got out what I needed to, and it was not necessarily the full course, it was part of the
Yes.
course, and I got out what I needed from that, then that has served me. You know?
Yes.
And so, do I need a certificate for that? Maybe, maybe not. And
Yeah.
maybe it's enough that I know, well, I got something out of that, or I can take what I learned and apply it elsewhere. That for
Mhm.
me is the learning, right? Can you apply it elsewhere?
Yeah.
And if I did, that's great. Well, for the metrics of completion, it may not show.
Yeah.
And so, and also it's, it's free. What does that mean?
Mhm.
There's no risk associated with
Mhm.
completing or not completing. So motivation plays a big role in that space. And am I, or is the learner motivated to do something or to complete something? And how will that benefit them?
Mm.
And if we go into and there's also a distinction between is something credit bearing or not credit bearing, and there's could be a whole nother
Yeah.
discussion on that. And or what am I paying for this? What am I paying for that? So, but if you are signing up to a fully online degree and your ambition is to complete the degree and gain a postgraduate degree, a master's level degree, you will most likely complete that. You will progress.
Mhm.
Life gets in the way, and you may postpone, or you may defer, or you may take longer than otherwise. But if the motivation is there, then those students will complete. And so, but again, there's a kind of a whole ecosystem of the types of courses that are on offer, right? Free courses, you've got a short course, you might pay for a short course, but there's no credit. You might have a micro-credential that has some credit attached to it. It's also fee-based, and it might be recognized onto another program later down the line, or you're signing up for a whole degree program. So the offer now in the UK and well beyond in the world of education and online education is really supporting lifelong learning
Yes.
in a different way. Non-traditional students returning to education, adults returning to education, and recognizing that the degree itself is not always the end point, and that degree may not serve everyone. Maybe you just need a top-up, maybe you just need something else.
Tell me the last online course you registered for?
Oh my goodness, you're putting me on the spot. What did I register for? Oh no, I think I was looking at some, there's different courses on, future thinking and future, future of education and different things like that. And I think I think I did sign up for one of those kind of, as a self-directed course.
Yes.
I don't think I finished it. I think it's still open and available to me, but again, it's kind of prioritizing.
Yes.
Prioritizing where I put my energy.
Yeah, I think the thing I heard about that was before I had this thing I'm about to say. I used to start books and had to finish them because I just could not leave a book unfinished.
Oh.
And I read somewhere somebody say, well, if you've read a page of a book, that's a page finished. That's what you're intending to finish. That's all you need from that page. Paying the money and realizing that you don't need that book is the sunk cost of that book. You don't need to give up an extra 100 hours of your life just to be able to finish that book. And that really freed me up to be able to leave books unfinished and to be able to go on courses and decide, actually, because of priorities, this is no longer aligned.
Yeah.
But there's still a lot of learning.
It is. And it's also knowing you have something to go to when you need it.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Whether it's a book and going to the chapter that actually is going to be exactly what you need at a given time, or going back to a course that you have access to and getting what you need at that time,
Mm-hmm. So, Margaret, the thing I always get when I meet you is that you're a very zen person. It's like time just moves at a calmer pace around
I love
you.
it.
And I'm just wondering, and this is a question I ask all our guests, what is it you do? What's your daily practice, if you have one, a routine that you follow, if you have one, that gives you that calmness? Because you're a very busy person, but you're very calm. Being in your company is very calming.
Thank you. I'll take that as a compliment. But
It is.
Yeah, I'm not really good at a specific daily practice other than, I do walk the dog, get the dog out in the morning, and that's certainly a good starting point.
Mm-hmm.
I live pretty much in the country, so seeing the fields at a given point in their cycle is really fascinating, just to see the green of the landscape and just to be out there in that. I think also there's something really interesting about seeing the horizon. Now, that sounds really funny, but it's like, seeing how the sunrise shifts, but also how it shifts day to day and season from season to season. I love that. And, that is probably part of my daily practice. Like, where is the moon right now? Where is the sun rising? Oh, it's behind this tree, or actually now I see it front on. And then, of course, the cycle of the fields that, in East Riding of Yorkshire, where I live, currently surrounded by flaxseed and wheat and barley all over the place. And it's wonderful and it's beautiful. And you just kind of see the cycle of the seasons, really intentionally when you're seeing the countryside.
It puts you back in touch with nature,
isn't it? Yeah, and it's so important, and it's just, it puts things into perspective too. You know what? It's a beautiful day. I'm outside. I'm walking the dog. You kind of think, yeah, there's a load of things to do, and they will need to get done. But right now, I'm just gonna be
walk
right
the
here.
Dog.
I'm just gonna walk the dog. And honestly, that's a bit of mindfulness that I don't.
Yes.
I'm not trying to do emails on the
you
dog
can't.
walk. Yeah.
Fabulous. And so, in terms of nourishing your body, I'm a big believer in that. When I realized that actually my sugar rush and sugar crash came from the choices I made when I have the afternoon slump, and stop doing that, my energy is more consistent. So I'm always curious to know if people have anything they do or avoid just to maintain really good, solid energy throughout the day. If there's anything you've learned along that line.
No, it's really good. I think in general, I have for a long time really, probably since my teen years, generally eaten really healthily. Veggies has always been a big part of it. I've gone through different phases of vegan or vegetarian and meat or not meat, and different things. But ultimately looking at, how do I feel when I eat these things, and just being kind of mindful of the impact. And I think we do feel an impact. I mean, I know I do. Certain things just don't make me feel a little bit groggy. They don't agree, the digestion doesn't work with that food or whatever it is. And so I think, just being really mindful of eating locally where possible. And again, part of that kind of being in touch with the land is, what's in season, and it's kind of, I think growing up in California, we had so much fresh fruit and vegetable, and here I'm always kind of looking, what's the...
More potatoes, more apples.
Oh gosh, yeah. No more potatoes, please. So, what's local right now, and or where did that come from? You look at, I love avocados, for example, and I just think, some are coming pretty far away.
There's a documentary on Netflix about avocados.
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, yeah, anyway, I think it's
I
just
had
about
one
awareness.
today, so all full disclosure, I love my avocados.
I love avocados too, so I'm probably not going to get rid of them too quickly. But I think just being mindful and eating healthy in general.
And I think we still don't understand the impact diet is having on our mood and our ability to work and the choices and decisions we make. I know I didn't for a very long time, because I used to wake up and drink, have a cereal with dairy milk, which I am intolerant to and didn't know for a long time. And I used to top that up with bread at lunchtime, and I happen to be gluten intolerant, which I wasn't aware of as well. So imagine having 3 meals every day that were filled with things that my body wasn't really excited about. And I didn't quite understand why I didn't quite feel so excited about like my body, but I didn't know why. And immediately I cut these things out. I was like, oh, voila, that was the reason.
Makes a difference.
So yeah, I really encourage anyone listening who isn't feeling amazing. It's not about weight. It's not about being a certain size. It's just really about feeling good and
Yeah.
losing the mental fog that a lot of us tend to have.
Yeah.
And it's all down to what we're feeding ourselves every day. So I'm
Completely.
not saying this because I'm the slimmest, healthiest person. I'm just saying this because of energy.
It is about energy, and the food nourishes us, and where does that food come from, and does it nourish us? Does it feed us truly? And that's just being aware of that is really
Yes.
can help inform our choices. Yeah.
So a young lady asked me this question this morning, and I'll ask you the same. What do you know now that you would like to pass on to your 25-year-old self?
Oh, wow. So, yeah.
Exactly. That was my exact response. That, where do you start? Is it with career? Is it with relationship? Is it with money? So let's compare answers. What would you tell your 25?
So yeah, when I was 25, I was living in Austria, and doing some interesting things. But I think just to trust myself a bit more. I think really create those bonds with your friends and foster those connections with those who also fill you with joy. And retain and maintain those connections. I think our community of friends and support network is really important, but it's also important to foster that. And I think with work and things, we can let that be the last thing we do.
Mm-hmm.
and again, we have to prioritize, but at the same time, where is that in its own right a priority actually? And yeah. Just to be mindful.
So the response I gave this particular young lady was that I feel looking back that there were so many things I didn't love about my body, but when I look back, I was probably in the best shape of my life. And so I told her she's probably in her best shape of her life, and to enjoy that, to take lots of pictures, which I didn't, to just have a lot of fun because. Yeah. As you grow older, every time you don't feel exactly in love with where you are, but when you look back, it was pretty good then. So don't wait. Yes, just enjoy every stage because it is what it is, and it's pretty good.
It is at the moment.
And you have to recognize it for what it is. But I also realized that in my 20s, I did a lot of the foundation work that maybe I am enjoying now. And I made some great friends and had some fantastic experiences. Probably some of the regret I have about my 20s is not going on some big crazy holidays because I was just worried about finances.
Yeah.
I probably should have done that.
Exactly.
And I told her to do all that and also, just make sure she has a solid foundation for 20s,
I love it.
30s and 40s. But it's recognizing where you are and making the most of it, isn't it?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
When you move on, you don't look back.
That's right.
Fabulous. So we like to end on a book. Do you have a book you recommend, Margaret?
Oh yes, I do. I mean, right now I'm looking at Learning Engineering Toolkit.
Ooh, that is a dry book.
Oh, I know. I haven't read a book for pleasure in a long time.
Me too.
I have to say, I really don't. I guess this is probably not completely true. But I don't read cover to cover. I dip in and dip out as well.
Yes.
But the Learning Engineering Toolkit I'm enjoying right now. But one of the I'm also looking at kind of designing for a sustainable future, but again, it's still
It's hardcore, Margaret.
Still
Margaret, you need to go and find some fun books to read.
I don't have a fun book to read. Oh no.
Says the person who hasn't read a fun book in years as well.
No, it's really bad. I don't. I do have a hard time just stopping and picking up a book for pleasure. I honestly. Solve for Happiness and looking at some of the AI as well,
yes,
and different things in that space. So just trying to stay abreast of it, but also keeping quite light and looking at it's moving so fast. That space is moving so fast paced at the moment. So that's what I'm just keeping my eye on in the literature.
Fabulous. Well, Margaret, thank you so much. Is there anything else you want to add?
I just love being in your presence as well, Griselda. I love your name anyway. I just love saying it, Griselda. It's such a beautiful name,
Thank you.
I find so much joy in just being with you. You have a brilliant smile and a brilliant presence, and I love your work. And you are doing so good, and just raising the profile of women and supporting them in your own business model. So I just, you are an inspiration to many.
You're so kind. Thank you. And I have to say, I started off with a migraine and it's gone now.
That's amazing.
I told you have a very calming effect on people. So thank you so much. It's a pleasure. It's a joy. The work I do, sometimes it's hard.
Of course.
But it's comments like this and emails from people that keep us going. So I really appreciate you making the time. I know somebody will listen to this story, to the choices you've made, and be really inspired to keep going or to just step out of the box. And that's what it's intended to do. So
Amazing.
thank you for sharing.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
So if you're listening to this for the very first time, you can check out the series of me in conversation with female leaders on the Forward Ladies website, on YouTube, on Spotify and iTunes. And if you like what we're doing, please subscribe and leave a comment and share it as well. That way we know you like it and we'll keep doing more of it. So thank you so much for listening in and for being with us for the past few minutes. Thank you.